Hey everybody, Paul Angelo here. Welcome to this amazing deeper dive into monogamy for 2023. We're going to talk about the latest trends in dating, in relationships, and we're going to talk about monogamy from the perspective of this framework of individuation, socialization, and domestication. Because when we think about monogamy, we're talking about a habit. We are talking about human behavior. If I were to ask you, stop drinking coffee, you would say, well, Paul, it's not fair because I love coffee. So to go from non-monogamy into monogamy, we are talking about a powerful behavioral shift. Human beings have emotions. We have our psycho-social feedback loops. We are pretty complex on the inside. So to expect monogamy from a 25-year-old gay man, it's kind of silly. Expecting monogamy from a 35-year-old man, it's still kind of silly. Now, expecting monogamy from a 45-year-old gay man, okay, now we are getting into a space of readiness so that man should be ready for the delivery for the manifestation of a monogamous behavior. He's been around the block. He's had multiple sexual partners, so sex is not this heavy weight on his desires. And now he is ready to combine emotions, to combine spirituality and sexuality, and deliver to the other person a wholesome experience of love. And in that situation, monogamy is absolutely beautiful, and it feels amazing to have a monogamous relationship. When we talk about monogamy, it's helpful to talk about non-monogamous behaviors in our 20s and 30s. It's helpful that you remember that men discover the world through sexuality. To tell a man who's 21 years old to not have sex with multiple partners, I believe that will cause injury to his development. And I've learned this from my own behaviors. I grew up in Poland. I started having sex in early 20s. And as I started having sex, I discovered that sexual behaviors with different men were good for me. They were teaching me things that otherwise I would have never been able to learn about myself, about my emotions, about my sexual arousal, about my attraction, and the entire alignment process of attraction, sexual arousal, and emotion would have never been perfected if I did not have exposure to variety of men in variety of sex in settings with different sexual acts happening in those settings. So there is value in having multiple partners in your 20s, in your 30s, to discover how your body feels when you're aroused and how emotions come into that equation and then contribute to the full experience of a sexual behavior. It's very important that we distinguish here the sexual behavior that does not include emotion and sexual behavior that does include emotion. So the no strings attached kind of hookups, those are not productive sexual behaviors because you don't learn anything emotionally through those behaviors. You have to remember that human beings have an emotional component that is very powerful. It doesn't matter that you're a man or a woman, all human beings have emotional side to us. And that emotion is part of perceiving reality. If you turn off that emotion, you are not perceiving reality accurately. When you listen to your emotions, you are growing and you are aligning. And that's important. That alignment is important because sometimes you see men who are 55 years old, they can only have sexual arousal when they are around 25-year-olds. And that happens because they are not aligned. They are having sex without emotion. So when we talk about becoming ready for monogamy, we're talking about having a series of sexual experiences over the course of a decade or two, where you combine sexual behavior with your emotion, you learn that with certain sexual behaviors, you feel wonderful, and other sexual behaviors, you feel awful. And then when you repeat that over the course of 10 years, you then discover that you don't want to do hundreds of sexual behaviors, and you prefer to do maybe 20 sexual behaviors. And then later, as you get older, you're able to enter into this monogamous experience because you have experimented enough. There is no craving of the unknown, and the sexual curiosity that is part of our development, that sexual curiosity has been satisfied. I call this entire process, I've actually coined this word, sexual completion. Men have to be sexually completed, gay men and straight men. For women, it's differently, but for men, because of their physiology and their way that they function, they have this visual aspect to their brain development that they need to see themselves naked with other naked bodies for the self-discovery process to be fully completed. There's a lot going on in sexual behavior. To say that you're going to be with only one person for the rest of your life since 20 years of age, it's almost like torture to your psychosocial sexual development. So when we talk about monogamy, it would be silly to skip this entire discussion here about how you are developing sexually and then emotionally and psychologically in the most important moments of your life, which are your teenage years, your 20s, and your 30s. Monogamy arrives when you have completed yourself, when you have completed your individuation, your socialization, and your now domestication is the moment when you enter into a partnership with a man, you're ready to settle down, you're ready for a house together, and you're ready for monogamy. So let's talk about these three stages. This is from Nathaniel Brandon. I've learned this. He passed about 5 years ago. He was a famous psychologist in Los Angeles. He wrote a whole bunch of books. And he came up with this three-stage framework: individuation, socialization, and domestication. If we are properly individuated, it means that our gay identity has been beautifully accepted, embraced, and then taken into the socialization stage by putting it out there. So socialization is where you take your identity, you go to gay networking events, gay chambers of commerce events, not sexual events, not sex parties, not sex orgies, but instead into legitimate, healthy social situations when you are communicating with words, when you are emoting, when you are spending time with other gay men. Now notice, this is lacking in society today. That's why the conversation about monogamy is so difficult, because it used to be that we were satisfied on the level of psychology to become ready for monogamy. Today, we are not. When you are meeting people on the hookup apps, on the dating platforms, you are texting to one another, and you're texting about all the wrong things. You're not being socialized. So this stage does not take place today at all in modern society in 2022 and going into 2023. This is not going to change. Socialization simply is missing. And that's why all of those beautiful things about relationships are going away now, because people are not socialized. People are in the space of social awkwardness, social anxieties. There are things missing in our experiences so that we can be relaxed about social experiences. We don't have any practice anymore. We're not socialized. And therefore, we cannot enter into the space of domestication where monogamy is located. So domestication is the final stage of completion of our psychology, where we don't crave the same things we used to crave because we socialized ourselves. We have acted all of those cravings out. Now, there's one more component to this that has to do with the rebellion that men have inside them. This rebellion is important because often when someone says, I want an open relationship, I want to be in a polyamorous relationship, What you need to remember is that that person probably only says this because he does not want to be controlled by anybody else. I remember with one of my ex-lovers, Eric, we moved to Florida. I was in my early 30s, and I remember telling him I'm not into monogamy, not because I was not into monogamy, but simply I wanted to tell him that he cannot control me. And that's what happens when our rebellion is not dissolved, is not socialized. And that's what you see with a lot of younger men today. They're into open relationships, they're into polyamorous relationships because they simply are rebelling. They don't want to be controlled. Just like with religion and God, you see a lot of rebellion against God and religion in the gay world as part of socialization, as part of self-discovery. People rebel to get feedback from others that then they take in and absorb into their consciousness. And eventually, at a certain moment, they stop rebelling and they are ready for monogamy, they're ready for God, or they're ready for the next level of their conscious evolution. So oftentimes, this rebellion is why you see men not wanting monogamy, even though they know it's good for them. So we talked about the 3 stages, the individuation, socialization, domestication. We talked about sexual completion versus monogamy. We talked about this rebellion that contributes to the rejection of monogamy. So now you should be clear about when monogamy is possible. Monogamy is possible with gay men who have been around the block, who have been socialized, who've had experiences of love and sex before, and they are ready to be more committed, to be more narrow-aware with their behaviors. Remember, the domestication stage is like a box. It's kind of like a prison. Yes, I know it is difficult to use this metaphor to imply that relationships are prisons. Relationships are prisons if we are not socialized. But you see, socialization is the process where we work out all the weirdness out of our behaviors, out of our psychology, so we can contain ourselves. Domestication is a containment. It is a prison. Yes, I mean, relationships on some level, they are prisons. You can't do whatever you want to do. That's the whole point of monogamy. That's the whole point of close relationships. You're not supposed to be anything at any time, no matter what happens on the outside. You just do whatever you want. No. You are committed now to the other person. You are responding to the external environment in a way that takes that other person into consideration. It takes decades to arrive at this state of being. And so the men that are capable of that are men usually in their 40s, 50s, and 60s and beyond. Men prior to that age, I don't believe they're capable of that because socialization does not occur in our society, in our gay culture today. Most gay men, including myself now, the only difference is that I've been socialized in Florida. I've gone to hundreds of networking events. So I lucked out that I've had the chance to do that. So I have been socialized. But today, this socialization is missing for me at this very moment. It's just I lucked out. I've been socialized in my 30s. But most gay men today don't have the luxury of going to regular networking events like chambers of commerce, university courses and presentations, maybe yoga places, gyms, and places of learning. Those places are going away. And so this healthy socialization is missing. And that's why we see crisis. Crisis not just in monogamy. We see crisis in general in the creation of healthy relationships. Because we are basically in a world where there is no socialization and people want to jump over that stage from individuation to domestication. And that's simply impossible. It's a recipe for a lot of challenges. I have one more picture here to show you. This situation is where monogamy does not happen. So this is a man who has not been fully individuated, socialized, and domesticated. He has had partial experience of individuation, socialization, and domestication. And here, monogamy is not possible. Here, you see that it's different. There is this sequence and this linear progression. Individuation is completed, then there's progression into socialization and progression into domestication. Now this man is at the end of those stages. He is ready for monogamy. Versus this man, he is tasting each of these stages every now and again. Often this is a person who lives in a rural area away from healthy gay socialization with very limited opportunities to meet men in a healthy way. They are most often hooking up on hookup apps. They're not having healthy, full, and wholesome experience of gay men. And there are a lot of men like that. And for them, monogamy simply will not be possible regardless of how much they put emphasis on it. So I think we covered most important aspects of what makes monogamy possible, what makes monogamy difficult. I am 100% pro-monogamy. I believe that monogamy is a wonderful thing to have. It's something to look forward to. It's a virtue. Monogamy is a virtue, is almost like a finality in the process of living our life, certain finality that once you have a committed monogamous relationship, you are tasting something that is beautiful. You're tasting something that is spiritually healthy, emotionally healthy. And in a perfect world, you would enter into that relationship by choice, not because you have to, not because someone tells you to, but because you genuinely want to do that. You genuinely can put away all the temptations, all of the distractions, and focus on one person. And that is something that I wish for all of you. That's something that I wish that happens to all of us, because it's the most beautiful, the most extraordinary experience of our lives. And everybody should experience this at least once in their life. And that's why I do this work. That's why I teach about relationships, because the magic, the greatest amount of magic that is ever possible for us, for me, for you, for all of us, happens from these beautiful social containers, beautiful relationships that give us access to transcendental, universal, beautiful experiences that have been talked about throughout human history since the beginning of mankind. Love, relationships, and beautiful sexuality in a space of monogamy is the ultimate frontier for happiness. So I hope that you enjoyed this conversation about monogamy. For more videos like these, please subscribe to my channel so that we grow together. If you want to meet gay men for monogamous relationships, then join us at the Big Gay Family social program. Visit the website biggayfamily.com and begin enrollment. And as always, my friends, I'm super grateful for you. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.